She's singing. Tansanimis means good evening, sister. Tansanistis means good evening, brother. And now, Patricia Keno, singer extraordinaire from Sudbury, Ontario, with a huge international career ahead of her, is now singing. Thank you so much for coming to our show tonight, ladies and gentlemen. Etc. C'est un exemple de la musique, une nouvelle sorte de musique qui est en train de sortir ici au Canada. Un exemple de la musique brésilienne, la musique classique du Brésil, samba, c'est-à-dire samba, la danse le plus sexy du monde, with samba, Brazilian samba with Cree lyrics. That's what we do. That's what I do for a living. That's how I pay my rent. Merci, thank you, Jerry. Anyway, that's the opening song from my most recent play, and for which I always had to write my own music because I could never afford to pay musicians. En tout cas, je vais commencer ma conférence, d'accord? Tansi na bichaga na, tansi. Kinanas ko mitna wala kita kido, itasi ko tagapi, ipintumi tapia chimuskata ko si se alutskagi segak. Nichiwa kan Marie Carrier, ay toy the mina oma, ay toy the mina oma school, University of Alberta kay sigati, mina oma utino Edmonton kay sigati. Kidawa mina kinanas ko mitna. Kinanas ko mitna mina Canadian Literature Center. Henry Kreisel mina stated in the Naskoma at this Idigo is a Kagiksi Watset. Idigo is a Kagisagi Tak Oma school. That's how we do it. That's how we say school in Cree is school. Kinanas ko mitna dagi kaita sigo tagagi pintumi tapiati mostataga saseminong sisi. Koyesemi Bonsoir à tous. Bonsoir à tout le monde. La première chose que je voudrais dire, avant que je commence ma conférence, c'est véritablement, et de vous remercier de m'avoir invité à présenter cette conférence ici à l'Université d'Alberta, ici dans la belle ville d'Edmonton, ici dans la belle province d'Alberta. Je voudrais remercier surtout la belle et super gentille Marie Carrière qui a travaillé tellement fort en organisant cet événement, un événement tellement spécial. La ville d'Edmonton est chanceuse d'avoir quelqu'un comme elle parmi ses citoyens. Merci, Marie. Merci également au Centre de littérature canadienne et grand merci finalement à M. Henry Kreisel, Kreisel, un vrai visionnaire d'avoir contribué d'une façon tellement réelle à la richesse culturelle et intellectuelle de cette ville. Un vrai visionnaire, je dirais. Puis on le remercie. Mais quand même, c'est toujours un immense plaisir pour moi d'être là, d'être avec vous, d'être parmi vous, ici dans une des institutions d'éducation la plus respectée et admirée au Canada et finalement au monde. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening, friends. The first thing I'd like to say before I start my lecture in earnest is to thank you all for inviting me to your beautiful and sexy city. Especially the very kind and talented Marie Carrière, who has worked so very hard to organize this event, who has worked so hard, very hard making sure that everything worked out just so. And by the looks of things, I think she's done a very good job because I see a very full house out there. Edmonton should consider itself lucky to have such an asset in its midst. Chapeau à Marie. Second last, I would like to thank also the Canadian Literature Center for receiving me so kindly. And last, a huge thank you to Mr. Henry Kreisel for having contributed in a manner so significant to this city. Always such a pleasure for me to come here and hang out. Bon, et maintenant je vais commencer ma conférence. I was conceived, born, and raised at Four Corners. Not Sudbury, Ontario's world-famous Four Corners, of course. And certainly not the American town of Four Corners, thus named for the reason that is the only place in the entire USA where meet four states, namely Arizona, New Mexico, Utah, and Colorado. No, those are not the Four Corners I speak of. I speak here of Canada's very own, one and only very recently created Four Corners, where that is now meet the provinces of Manitoba and Saskatchewan, and the territories called Northwest and Nunavut. Take that, Geography 101. Except that, of course, Nunavut came into existence only in 1999 when I was already 47, but that's another story. For another time, at another place. Northern Manitoba, in any case, is where I come from, proudly. Unfortunately, for those of you us who come from the area, when people think Northern Manitoba, they envision in a flash the port town of Churchill on the Hudson's Bay. But no, that's not where I come from. I come quite on the hand from the province's other end, that is its western extremity. So far west of Churchill that is Churchill, might as well be to us a suburb of Minsk, Belarusia. And Winnipeg so far south to us that to us it was Rio de Janeiro. Even the mining town of Tomson was, for us, as exotic and remote as Managua, Nicaragua. So far north is the land that I come from, in fact, that back in the day when I was born, which of course takes us back to the era of Genghis Khan and his wife Agnes, European languages of any kind, whatever, were unheard of. English wasn't spoken, French wasn't spoken, even Ukrainian was a complete non-presence. Not a pierogi in sight. The only human languages that were heard and spoken up in those parts back in those days were Aboriginal, and of these there were three: Dene, Cree, and Inuktitut. In fact, the land that I speak of was so far north that Cree, rightly speaking, didn't even belong there. Rightly speaking, the land that straddles the northern, I forgot to time myself, otherwise I'm going to be here for 3 days. Okay, I did that one time, 3 days. Rightly speaking, the land that straddles the northern extremity of the three prairie provinces and the southern extremities of the northwest Nunavut and Yukon territories was Dene territory. Cree, by comparison, came, as it still does, from the south, relatively speaking. From that is the central portion of the three prairie provinces and, of course, the northern halves of Ontario and Quebec. My father, Joe Highway, may he rest in peace, came from a First Nation called Pelican Narrows, which lies just inside Saskatchewan from Manitoba and some 100 kilometers north and slightly west of the border mining town of Flin Flon, Manitoba. As a young man, not yet 20, he went to work as an oarsman for the York boat sent to the far north by the Hudson's Bay Company to trade with the Indians. And when he laid eyes for the first time on the barren lands of what was then still just the Northwest Territories, he was smitten. And that was that. At that point in his life, he became a Northern Manitoban and stayed so for the rest of his life. And the First Nation of which he eventually became a registered member, the territory of which is called Barren Lands, the village of which is called Brochet. Though this First Nation lay not quite in the barrens of Nunavut, then it lay just south of them, just inside, that is, the province of Manitoba, where it meets his native Saskatchewan. And though we had a house in the village of Brochet, we in reality spent very little time there. What we did was out on the land, a remarkable land, a beautiful land, a land not seen to this day by the most adventurous of Europeans. With a fur trader, a missionary, prospector, cartographer, or Avon saleswoman. A land populated by great herds of caribou and filled to surfeit by 1,000 crystal-watered lakes with 10,000 islands ringed by beaches as stunning as Brazil's and rivers and waterfalls and eskers and very low forests of spruce and pine and birch and willow. And by Dene, an Athabascan people whose presence on that land goes back eons. Making the 12 brown offspring of Joe and Pelagia Highway, Cree Indian children who had the privilege of growing up in Denetory with Dene children, making us bilingual right from birth. The older children more so than the youngest, for I am the 11th of those 12. As a nomadic people, our wanderings varied. There were years, for example, when we traveled further north, always by dog sled in winter, canoe in summer, back in those days. And then there were years when we stayed closer to our home base of Brochet. In fact, before I was born, that is to say, when my parents were younger, had fewer children, and thus were more mobile, those wanderings sometimes took us so far north that we were beyond Manitoba and well into Nunavut, where we met and mingled with yet another Aboriginal people, the peaceful Inuit, with their sealskin costumes, their houses made of ice, and their own dances such as the twist. So that in this way did their language enter our lexicon. Inuktitut, this language is called. In fact, so close did our lives eventually intertwine with theirs that intermarriage happened on a basis semi-regular, resulting in the fact that to this day I have relatives who are part Inuit, and Inuktitut was heard when I was growing up right there in Brochet. So there we were, Joe and Pelagia Highway's brood, the privileged children of three native languages, each is distinct one from the other, as English is from Arabic and Korean, or French is from Mandarin or Swahili. For Cree, like Ojibwe and Blackfoot, is an Algonquian language. Dene, like Slavey and Dogrib, Athabascan, and Inuktitut in a linguistic family all on its own, kind of like Hungarian is in Europe, let us say. Between these three native languages, that is to say, there is not a stitch of similarity, not a syllable in common, and English was to come much later, as was French. In fact, the first European language that I was to learn, as it turns out, was neither. It was Latin, whereby hangs a tale of monstrous extravagance. Sorry, I get carried away. The English, I'm still learning it. Every day I learn a new word. Every day I add a new word to my vocabulary. Be that as it may, if we were bilingual in Cree and Dene, it was Dad who spoke Inuktitut, not us. But be that as it may, if we were bilingual in Cree and Dene, then so was Brochet. At the north end of this village that never numbered more than 800 people lived the status in Cree. At its south, the non-status Cree, as it being Cree to begin with was not complicated enough already. In between these two split communities lived the Dene, so that just to cross from one side of the village to the other, for we were status who happened to have relatives who had married on status, for we were one had to change language not once but twice. Once from Dene to Cree to Dene when we walked through the Dene neighborhood and the dogs barked at us in Dene and we had to bark back in Dene. And once from Dene back to Cree when we reached the other side. So that by the time you arrived at your Aunt Emily's, your tongue was exhausted. Changing linguistic gears on a dime like that will do that to you. And speaking of Aunt Emily, she was half Dene, for my mother's father, when he lost his first wife to death by illness, took on a Dene woman as a second wife, and from that union had Aunt Emily and 5 other children, half Cree, half Dene. Intermarriage between the Cree and the Dene, that is to say, transpired with a regularity that as the years moved forward alarmed race purists and sparked wild rumors. As you may have read or may not have read on the internet, I was born in a snowbank. In the dead of a Manitoba winter yet, which sounds extraordinary, if not quite fictive. Wild exaggeration is the term I've been accused of when recounting this chapter of my life. But where those vile insinuations come from is that 90% of Canadians reside in that very narrow strip of land that hugs the American border, so know very little about the true North, strong and free. Because the truth of the matter is that back in the 50s when I was born, and in the 40s, 30s, and back to the cave days, most people were born like that, in that is such magic circumstances that is when men talk to animals and trees talk to women. It was par for the course. We're a northern people. Northern people are an extraordinary people who were born on an extraordinary land. I mean, not much further north of us, for God's sake. People were born in houses made of ice. They're called igloos. People were born on ice floes, which, in their own way, are icebergs of sorts. I mean, imagine being able to say that you were born on an iceberg. Being born in a snowbank pales by comparison. But what actually happened was that I was born in a tent pitched in a snowbank in one awful hurry, as my family, as usual, was traversing the tundra by dog sled, this some 100 kilometers north of Brochet, that is to say, in the very heart of Dene territory. And because this was the case, a Dene encampment just happened to be close by, which was why an old Dene woman named Titire Lura was roped into caring for my mother in her sickbed. Sorry about the Titire folks, but Dene names have always stumped me when it came to their spelling in Roman orthography, as the language wasn't written, as it still isn't. But that was her name, Titire. I should just pronounce Titire, but that's how I spelled it, Titire. Because it sounds nice. You don't want to know what we called her for short. So, but as my mother was fluent Cree and fluent Dene, she and this midwife, Titire Lura, would have communicated in Dene, so that the first words I heard when I came into this world were not English, not French, not Cree, but of all things, Dene. The Dene language belongs to the earth. It comes from the earth. It sounds like the earth. For yes, ile, for no, nori, They have sounds like that in Cree. Sorry, I got some. I got your Jerry. I got your microphone wet. I'm so sorry. I have a Kleenex. I wipe it. Anyway. But the Dene does that to you. When you speak Dene, you have to use a lot of saliva. But Cree, no saliva. Okay. So I'm getting lost here. Even dice Dene Beyaz. I don't know if there's any Dene people in the room, but that's a shocking thing to say. Dancing is its most common swear word, etc. I still remember significant amounts of it, though these days I rarely speak it. And with names like Denetcheze, Chizaze, Dantuze, Gazayu, Adunaze, Jalakwaze, Old Dice Chagaze, etc., the letter Z is probably its most important sound, the sound that angers it, where, on the other hand, the Z is completely absent in Cree, which is more in love with the K and the Ch, as in Kipochim. Any Cree speakers in the room? Oh dear, you don't want to know what that means. And the K and the Ch is in Kipochim, and the P is in Ipapagas. So the Dene language belongs and comes from the soil and the Muskeg and the reindeer moss of the northern extremities of the three prairie provinces and a sizable chunk of the Northwest Territories. They're not so much notable, for on that side the language merely peaks into its southern extremity. Then Cree comes from the latter of a cosmic clown, as he, she has been called. A merry maker called the trickster. Wisakinchak in Cree, Nanabush in Ojibwe, Glooskap in Mi'kmaq, Iktomi in Lakota, Kayolo on the plains, Raven on the west coast. He, she goes by many names and comes in many guises, which is why Cree has got to be the world's funniest language. I lie not when I say that each syllable is a kick in the pants, a poke in the bum. A quality not helped by the fact that my dialect of the language also happens to be the fastest of any dialect of any language anywhere on the planet. So now, very briefly, I'll take a dip into its rhythm and character. Fasten your chastity belts, ladies and gentlemen. That's going to be a bumpy ride. You see, Brochet, unfortunately, was converted in the late 19th century by French Roman Catholic missionaries. God bless them. So that, to this day, the fastest Hail Mary in the world is heard there. My mother, may she rest in peace, used to say her rosaries with such blinding speed that sparks would be seen flying out of her mouth, and one summer day set the priest on fire. In the confessional. And you know what the priest said? He said, "Holy smoke! My cassock's on fire." And then you know what happened? The Brochet fire department pulled up in a cloud of dust and doused him with holy water. That's how Catholic Brochet was at the time. Still is. Ever hear of a Hail Mary contest? Do you have Hail Mary contests here in Edmonton? No? Shame on you. And you consider yourselves good Christians? You want to know what a Hail Mary contest is? A Hail Mary contest, my dear friends and colleagues, is when the entire population of a village like Brochet kneels in a row on the main street with their rosaries jangling and rattling in their hands like the chains of love. Then the priest shoots a handgun. Bang! And the people go, you see? I just won the Hail Mary contest. Give me $10. Okay. You see, you don't even know what I'm saying, but you're laughing or at least smiling, and all I'm saying is one skirt, two skirts, three skirts. Or rather, in literal translation, one dress cut in half, two dresses cut in half, three dresses cut in half. That's what we call a skirt, a dress cut in half. Makes sense, doesn't it? That's how comical the syllables are. Three more examples. I'll conjugate the verb breathe for you, okay? I'll conjugate the verb suffer, okay? Good Catholic word. Even that sounds funny. It's about suffering. Even that makes us laugh. Honest to God. It's the silliest language in the world. People will say, campaign. And we burst out laughing, and what it means is, I'll kill you. and I'll conjugate the verb to go sour for you, okay? As in milk, when it goes sour. And then I'll say, okay? We kill ourselves laughing when we say that. And all I'm saying in English is, hey, who just came in the door? See what I mean? If air traffic control at airports functioned in Cree, no plane would ever make it to the tarmac. The pilots and the people in the air traffic control tower would be laughing so hard they'd forget their instruments and kill thousands. So no laughter at the airport, please. I want to get home. Aside from humor, however, there are other even more significant differences between Cree and Dene on the one hand and French and English on the other. Between that is Aboriginal languages and their European counterparts, keeping in mind that I am nominally familiar with at least one other in the former category, namely Ojibwe, and with at least 4 others in the latter, among them Spanish and German. But the fundamental difference has to do with gender and its immediate offshoot, namely the aliveness or deadness of nature. European languages are obsessed by the question of gender. They divide the universe into that which is male and that which is female. In English, less so than in French or German, say. In the monotheistic superstructure that they define, God is male with a capital M, then there is male with a small m, followed by female with a small f, followed by nature and hell, for that matter, which are genderless, which are its. The question students always ask being, where in the superstructure is female with a capital F? And the answer, nowhere. There is no such thing as female with a capital F in such a design. Because this design, in the final analysis, is a phallic superstructure, a hierarchic straight line that goes from God as male at the top to male to female to neutral at the bottom, with one level of power having complete and utter power over the next. And there is room for 2 genders only, with one at the complete mercy of the other, and God help the person who dares try to cross that gender divide. Aboriginal languages, on the other hand, divide their universe not into genders, but into that which is animate and that which is inanimate. That is which has a soul and that which has not. Gender, or a hierarchy thereof, having no significance, we are all, when all is said and done, he, she's, as is God, one would think. The resulting superstructure being thus not a straight line of monotheism, but the circle, the womb of pantheism. A system wherein God is in nature. God is biology, God is the land. A ionic superstructure, that is to say, as opposed to one that is phallic. A design, in other words, where there is room and plenty of it for more than just 2 genders. And so goes the argument, just to avoid another case of our late Cree sister, Helen Buddy Osborne, who was murdered by being stabbed in the vagina 56 times with a screwdriver, to avoid another case of Robert Picton and his 29 victims, to avoid another Prince George to Prince Rupert trail of tears where dozens of Native women continue to be murdered in cold blood, we need 56 genders, to my way of thinking, if only to honor those 55 screwdriver stabs. A woman, in any case, according to the system, is animate. She has a soul. Anna is squeal. The article Anna being the operative principle, the le or la in French, the der, die, or das of German. The man has a soul. Anna na piu, as does the tree. Anna siite, the cow. Anna Monstrous, the rock. Anna assini. All annas, so to speak, they all have souls. They all have a place of equality on that circle of living, breathing beings. And the only way you can make them inanimate is to remove their souls, so that a woman who has died automatically becomes a nema miyao, the corpse. Ditto for the man, the dead tree is made into a chair, a nema kitapuin, making that chair a tree without a soul. The dead cow is made into a roast, a nema wiyas. The rock is crushed into cement and made into a sidewalk, transforming that sidewalk, anima miskano, into a rock without a soul, the operative word in all this being the article anima. And because the straight line of heaven to hell doesn't exist, all these dead don't go to either. Once they die, they merely get translated into another form of energy where they go to another part of that same circle, which is why the earth is such a magical place, because the dead, your brother, your sister, mother, father, grandmother, grandfather, son, daughter, best friend, all of whom are gone, are still here with us. Not as a ghost, but as blade of grass, leaf of tree, ray of sunshine, a warm summer breeze, the blood in your veins. And biology, not man, but the planet, has pride of place in the great scheme of things. And so goes the argument. Now let's take this equation of animate, inanimate one level deeper. All the parts of the human body by themselves are inanimate. The head by itself, anima mystigon, has no soul. You will notice the article anna has now been replaced by the article anim. The hand, anima michiichi, has no gender, as does the leg, anima miscat. The stomach, anima wate. The bladder, anima oui. That's how you call it, bladder. Just like in French when you say, when you agree with something, you go oui. The bladder, anima oui. Even the heart by itself is soulless, anima uti. The penis, dead as a doorknob. Sorry, boys. The only parts of the human body that by themselves have a soul are the vagina and the womb, which is where the concept of God as female rests rock solid, which is where the female with the capital F belongs, right smack in the center of that ionic circle. But then there is one other organ that I can't tell you about that by itself has a soul. You'll just guess which one it is, but I'll give you 3 hints. Both men and women have it. European languages were evicted from a certain garden, the garden of joy, the garden of beauty, the garden of pleasure at a certain point in their emotional history. Aboriginal mythology theology has no such narrative. So to them, therefore, northern Manitoba is still a garden. Northern Alberta is still a garden. And that third human organ that by itself has a soul lives in the center of that original garden, that is the human body. Third hint. It is the human body's funniest, most ridiculous looking part. The birthplace of the trickster, that cosmic clown. You might hear it tonight as you're brushing your teeth. In English, it will disgust because the garden, finally, is disgusting. In Cree, you will laugh until you weep. From which concept, wonder of wonders, arises the concept of a goddess who laughs, and laughs, and laughs, and laughs, etc., etc., etc. Don't let any of this upset or even scare you, ladies and gentlemen, because Cree is a dying language. English will live on forever. Long live God as male, and death to all other genders. Death to the earth. You see, without speaking other languages, you would never know these facts. You would never know that such a vision of life, one so different from yours, existed. There is simply no other way of finding such information. Speaking one language, it's like living in a house with one window only. That's all you see is that one perspective, when, in point of fact, dozens, hundreds of other perspectives exist, and one must, at the very least, listen to them. Then at age almost 7, I left the paradise that is northern Manitoba to go to boarding school. That's what I call it, because for me, it was a positive experience. Because of the practically Jesuit-style regimented education that I got at that school, for one thing, I enjoy today a thriving international career that takes me regular as clockwork to all 6 inhabited continents. I just got back from 5 weeks, blissful weeks in India, and I'm on my way to Brazil. Goodbye, minus 30. Don't get me wrong. I say I left paradise, but the truth of the matter is that it was only for 10 months of every year. The 2 months of summer, they were so spectacular that they more than replaced the other 10 months, especially with parents as remarkable as ours. As a boy of 11, already fishing with his dad, commercially, from 3 in the morning to 6 in the evening. Just the 2 of us in the canoe on these beautiful lakes. 2 other brothers manning a second canoe, brothers-in-law and whatnot manning a third, and with Sunday as our 1 day off a week, when we go on these fabulous picnics, I got to spend more time with this remarkable man, Joe Highway, in just one summer than the richest white boy in Rosedale gets to spend with his in an entire lifetime. But back to that school. It was, of course, a Catholic school. And being a boy pushing 7 years of age, I was roped in to be an altar boy. And this is the late 1950s going into the early 1960s that we speak of. Before that is the Second Vatican Council of 1962 transpired, when the Pope changed the liturgy from one set in Latin to one set in the vernacular of whatever country. I was already 11 when that council happened, so that just before that I got to my immense pleasure to learn all that gorgeous Latin, all those gorgeous Gregorian chants. I still know it. I still know them. For those of you who will remember it, please respond. Dominos vobiscum. Louder. Come on, be good Catholics for me, please. I'll do it again. Dominos vobiscum. Admit that it doesn't have very good Catholics, does it? The answer is, et cum spiritu tuo. And then I'll go, per, my favorite used to be, per omnia saecula saecula saeculorum. And what do you say? You go, Amen. Okay. Dominus vobiscum means, the Lord be with you. Et cum spiritu tuo means, and with you too. Per omnia saecula saeculorum means, forever and ever, never. And amen, of course, means, you got that right, baby. Okay? The Espeagesme, the Sanctus, the Credo, the Tantum Ergo, we sang it all. And back then, I had a voice that was sweeter than honey. As high as a fool, for I was, you see, a voice soprano, and because I was musical. Well, I sang so well that they seriously considered turning me into a castrato when I turned 12. Which is unfortunate that they didn't, because today I have a voice that makes blood curdle. I mean, if your dear Katie Lang has a voice that brings a lump to people's throats, apparently, I have one that brings a lunch to people's throats. Needless to say, however, I loved wrapping my hot little tongue around some good hot Latin. I still do. When I'm in Rome, yeah. I love Rome. And then, after Latin, I finally encountered English full force. See Spot run. See David come. All over Spot. Run, Spot, run. Run, run, run. Again, I had a gas. Even though much later on, once I got out of the sheltered atmosphere of boarding school with what amounted to 200 siblings whom I loved and still do with all my heart, once I left the supportive atmosphere of my own family, and once I ended up in high school in Winnipeg, it turned out to be an exercise in rank and dreadful embarrassment, this English that I learned. All-out humiliation. As it turns out, the English that we learned among ourselves in that boarding school was a pidgin English that belonged only and exclusively to that isolated place, away out in the woods some 30 kilometers north of the railway town of the Fall, Manitoba. Never saw. It don't sound good. You want some of the coffee? My father, he wants some gazi. Hey, I saw you stealing. That kind of thing. Well, that just didn't cut it in this big white city, which was, like it or not, my new home and heart. Still, I swallowed my hurt, my pride, and my sorrow, wiped off my tears, combed my hair, put on my lipstick. You're just kidding. And then took it off, by the way. And soldiered on. Lipstickless. And with the help of many remarkable, kind, and very generous white people, whom I just love. Right up to my years in university and beyond, I eventually mastered it until I could speak it like good Queen Elizabeth. Away over there across Kichigamak, as we call it in Cree. Kichigamak, that's the Atlantic Ocean, the Great Water. Learning another language, it's like that, humiliating as hell. You get laughed at for the mistakes that you make. You get mocked for your accent. You just get laughed at. You just get laughed at, but you don't let it stop you. You just grit your teeth and march on forward. Fortunately, I had the privilege of learning yet another language at the same time as English, and this language was music. I had picked up the piano at that boarding school, and once from a little old nun named Sister St. Arma, cute little, chubby little thing. God bless her. May she rest in peace. And once I was in high school in Winnipeg, Indian Affairs, God bless them, always made sure they boarded me at a home that had a piano, for I was obsessed with the instrument. My paternal grandfather was a legendary fiddler, My father played the accordion, so I, third generation in this line of musicians, would become a pianist. It was natural. High school in Manitoba in those days didn't offer music as an elective, so all music lessons, if one wanted them, had to be taken outside school hours. They were considered, that is to say, extracurricular activity. Now, I don't have my facts dead on here, but at 7 a.m. Monday morning, say, I would be at my private lesson in harmony, she Gwen Davies, this eccentric old woman who worked for the king. At 7 a.m. Tuesday, I was at my lesson in form. 7 a.m. Wednesday, it was my lesson in history, that is music history. 7 a.m. Thursday, I was at my lesson in counterpoint, etc. And this, keep in mind, entailed my getting up at 5:30 a.m. every morning to get on a bus in the butt-freezing winter of Winnipeg to cross the city and cross it going the other way to be in school on time for 9 a.m. And then Blessed Saturday, of course, was the day of my weekly piano lesson. Heaven. In this way, and later on at university, I learned to deconstruct and then reconstruct a Beethoven sonata. Play the chamber music, to play Chopin nocturnes, to write my own fugue in the style of J.S. Bach. Write for an orchestra. Play the chamber music of Mendelssohn, Schubert, and Shostakovich. Accompany opera singers, and in the process, familiarize myself with the operatic repertoire, etc., etc. From age 18 to age 22, that's all I did. It was total immersion. I was a Buddhist monk and music was my god. I may not quite have reached my dream of becoming a concert pianist. I started too late, born in the wrong place at the wrong time. Northern Manitoba and a snowbank with the nearest piano 500 kilometers away? Forget it. I mean, Glenn Gould was born in Toronto. Martha Argerich in Buenos Aires, Argentina. Evgeny Kissin in Moscow. Yuja Wang in Beijing. Jan Lizetsky in Edmonton. All these good people, God bless them, born and raised in the music capitals, if not of the world and of their respective capitals. They were born in the right place at the right time, but I wasn't. So, I had no choice but to move on to other dreams, which, God willing, I had plenty. One of which was to write my own music for my own shows. One of which was to write songs and play them for my own cabarets. Cabarets that are now heard on 6 continents, for music, as it turns out, is the original and only universal language, the only one understood and spoken in all 450 countries on this planet. Okay, at this point I want to demonstrate musical literacy. Okay, a very simple fact of musical literacy. This is the CD that you heard the music from at the opening and while you were entering. It's on sale afterwards in the lobby. I'll be signing books and whatnot. And those of you who don't buy this, anybody who doesn't buy this CD tonight will be destroyed. I'll destroy it completely. Anyway, musical literacy is to be able to read. There's many definitions of it, of course, but one of them, of course, is to be able to read a line of music. To know the difference between a C and a G. That's an interval of a perfect fifth. To know what a perfect fifth is, to know what a major third is, which is formed in this case by the E, natural. So that the 3 notes played together, the tonic, the third, and the dominant form a major chord, a C major chord. And if you add the minor 7, which is the B flat underneath, it sounds like this. You color it. It's like painting. It's like coloring. It's like painting a painting. Listen, so okay, from the C major chord to the C7. That's with the minor 7, the B flat. When you take that B flat up 1 semitone to B natural, then you get a C major 7. And if you take that major 7th to the B natural down to a major 6th, which is the A, you get this. And that's C, okay? Take that up a perfect 4th to the key of F. It changes. Music has color. They say that F is blue. They say that G major is yellow. They say that A minor is black. But D flat major is pink. When you hear stuff written in there's the dreamy music that you hear sometimes. Chopin Nocturne D flat major, for instance. It's just dreamy stuff. And anyway, the F with the major 7th, add it, alternated with a minor major sixth, which is in this case is the D. You alternate them, you get this. To be able to distinguish that, to be able to talk like that, to be able to know exactly what's happening mechanically and aesthetically, and the psychological effect that those sounds have on the human brain, thanks to people like intellectuals like Daniel Levitin, whose books you must read. And then you add the element of rhythm, the bass, because we're in F. I'll alternate the tonic with the dominant. And then you add a syncopation. And then you add the melody. G minor, F, C7. E7, G7. Etc. That's one of the songs from the CD. Yes. So that's 4/4 time. Now, don't ever do 4/4 time is very dancey, and it's I would say it's allegretto. The speed. All the terms are Italian. Allegro, allegretto, presto con fuoco, poco a poco. Sounds like you're making love, eh? Italian is a very romantic language. I know I go to Rome a lot. That's why I keep going there, because I like saying, no, poco a poco. Poco means little by little. Poco, it's a very common musical term. And, or brio, allegro con brio. Allegro fast with, brio. Some of the words have been adopted into the English language. Oh, so that's 4/4 time. That's different from 3/4 time. See, 3/4 time. 3/4 time is a waltz. That's a march is in 4/4 time. That was Dixieland, New Orleans style music. 4/4 time, and then when you have 3/4 time, which is a waltz, a very gentle waltz in this case, a lullaby, inspired by my own tribute to one of my favorite pianistic composers, Maurice Ravel. And then to be able to talk about Maurice Ravel and what he wrote, okay? That's... So if you turn that 3/4 time into 6/8, you would go... For instance, you would never go to a funeral and sing something in 6/8 time. That would be politically incorrect. At a funeral, right? With the couple just bouncing along. Maybe that's the kind of thing of it. Maybe that's the kind of funeral I'll have. Just to have one good laugh, one last good party, to get everybody drunk and do. But my tribute to Ravel and what I've learned from all the other composers and men over the years, it's extraordinary. This literacy that I speak of, to be able to talk, to know the history of music in the Western Hemisphere, you know, to know that, for instance, simple facts like the fact that Beethoven wrote 32 piano sonatas, that the last three, Opus 109, Opus 110, and Opus 111, are written in the keys of E major, A flat major, and C minor. That the A major one, Opus 109, which is my favorite of the 32 piano Beethoven sonatas, has a last movement, a third movement, that is a theme and variations. The theme for which goes da, 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 etc., etc. To know like that, to be able to talk like that intelligently and in an informed manner about music, that's musical literacy. And even more than that, even beyond that, to be able to write, put to the test a symphony, for a symphony orchestra, for all 100 instruments, for the 18 first violins, 16 second violins, 14 violas, 12 cellos, 10 basses, and the brass, and the woodwinds, and the timpani, and all the percussion, etc., etc. To know what to write for each instrument. To know, to not forget ever, for instance, to allow the flute player to breathe every once in a while. It's true. I've almost killed flute players because I forgot to let them breathe. Singers too. I forget to let them breathe. Anyway, I'll play my little. My little tribute to Ravel, a little waltz, a lullaby, and a little quotation from one of my favorite folk songs. And I'll let you guess which folk song it is. Everybody knows it. D minor. It's written in C. That's a D minor chord. G7. And that's the intro. And now it's on. Oh, I wish I could sing. I work with beautiful singers, but I don't sing myself. I'll just do the instrumental. Thank you. It's on a CD. That one is called "Oh Little Bear." It's about the small dipper up in the sky. "Oh Little Bear Up in the Sky." The words go like that. You'll hear them when you buy it. And that one's written in English. And the first one was called "Hey Good Lookin'," but not Hank Williams. Hey Good Lookin'. The words here go, "Hey Good Lookin', hey Good Lookin'. Hey, good looking, ain't you cooking?" No, ain't you cooking? No, it's not. "Hey, good looking, ain't you booking some nighttime nooking for someone looking about for come what may?" So just for time to play, you know, and so on and so forth. So you learn how to write the lyrics for this stuff as well as you become a writer, because writing words is a form of composition, musical composition. And I just wanted to say one last thing before I go back to the principal mic, and that is that. I mean, my fingers are really out of shape right now because I've been touring India. And so I'm not going to play anything much more complicated than that because I'll ruin it. And I've long ago abandoned my classical repertoire, so I don't play Chopin anymore. Whatever. I'll just go back to my speech. I just wanted to say, convey the idea of musical literacy and how important it is in the life of someone. And I'm going to add to that just right shortly. Okay, the third movement of the Opus 1 might be being a theme versions. To be able to talk intelligently and in an informed fashion about the structure of Maurice Ravel's spectacular piano suite, Gaspard de la Nuit, with its 3 pieces entitled in order Ondine, Ligibet, and Scarbo. To know the intimate details of Johannes Brahms' great piano concerto in B-flat major, etc. Of Chopin, Rachmaninoff, Scriabin, Verdi, Puccini, Bellini, Spaghetti, Fettuccini. Did you know that Fettuccini was a famous Italian composer? He was. He just didn't have a very successful career. Not as successful as Puccini's. But he was. Giuseppe Petrucci. we can talk about him later on in the bar. Anyway, this language too, that is, the language of music, gives you a perspective on the world, on a life that is achievable in no other way. It is, that is to say, yet another window on another wall of that house. Dig out the biographical details of the most successful men and women on earth. Doctors, scientists, educators, politicians, architects, you name it. And you will find almost always in that biography the essential element of that sixth sense, musical literacy. Once you have it, chances are, not always, but almost, chances are that you become a powerhouse, a real contender. Donc, au moment donné, j'ai commencé à parler en français. Je ne me souviens pas exactement quand, mais j'avais commencé sans le savoir, je pense. C'était peut-être avec les religieuses et les compagnonneurs où je suis allé passer 9 ans en tout. C'était peut-être avec mes amis franco-maltomains que j'ai rencontrés à Winnipeg, où je suis allé pour l'école secondaire. Et c'était certainement à Montréal, une fois que j'avais commencé mes études à l'université à London, Ontario, et on irait de temps en temps à Montréal pour rendre visite à des amis, et des chers amis, des amis que j'adore, que j'ai adorés à ce moment-là. Je ne les adore plus. La situation a changé radicalement depuis ce temps-là. Mais quand même, non, c'est pas vrai, je les adore toujours. Toujours. Et plus tard, en France, où je suis allé la première fois à l'âge de 20 ans, ça c'est il y a 45 ans, 42 ans, et où je suis vécu à partir de l'âge de 48 jusqu'à l'année passée, c'est-à-dire l'âge de 61, c'est-à-dire 13 ans en tout. Sauf que je devais continuer mon discours en anglais parce qu'autrement, la plupart de mes chers amis dans cette belle salle ne comprendraient pas. Mon Dieu Seigneur, comme ils disent au Québec, oh là là, comme ils disent en France. Mais quand même, what I just said was that I should continue my speech in English, or I risk having my speech completely misunderstood or ununderstood. En tout cas, mes chers amis, I started at one point, I don't remember exactly when, learning French. I had, of course, heard it spoken by the nuns and priests and lay personnel at the boarding school I went to, for they were almost all francophone. And then I studied the language after a fashion in high school in Winnipeg and lived and mingled with the Franco-Manitobans whose farms and villages surround Winnipeg. And then later on in life, I took courses at places like l'Alliance Française, the University of Toronto, the Bouchereau International School of Languages in Montreal, spent tons of time in that fabulous city over the years and went, please, to France, including fun jags in Paris. And then later had the great good fortune to fall in love with a Franco-Ontarian, thus ending up moving into the heart of the Franco-Ontarian community around Sudbury, Ontario, from where he came, and later moved to France with him. For 13 years, or rather, for the 6 winter months of every year for those 13 years, I lived in a small seaside village in the south of France, where my partner and I made scads of friends and became part and parcel of entire families. My partner being an international level bridge player, he, among other things, taught bridge to the elderly, of which, of course, French is not short of. And in this way, we connected with the community, not just in the village, but in those up and down the part of the Mediterranean coast, from the city of Perpignan to the country's border with Spain. And we were loved, and I was helped from my French. The language being my partner's mother tongue, he didn't need that. That I did, but still, for those 13 years, the laughter at my mistakes, the subtle tongue-in-cheek mocking of my accent. The French, for one thing, don't seem to understand that no one but them will ever speak their language with their accent, and they should accept this. They should accept and understand that a person making the very arduous and painful effort of learning their language is an act of respect for their culture, an act of admiration, an act of love. Yes, it means you love them. The question being, do they love you? For a people so intelligent, so well-educated, so sophisticated, I was shocked by how adamantly unilingual they are. Though, of course, I love them dearly, so I can't exactly trash them now, can I? And I read things like, I started out reading things like Agatha Christie in French translation, because they are formulaic and that's easy to understand. Then I moved on to English classics that we all here in Canada know well. Books like Oliver Twist in French translation. Then until I moved on to the French classics themselves, Dumas, Zola, Balzac, etc. And in this way, I learned to speak a language without fear and loathing. And then because we lived in what in effect was the French-Spanish border where the Pyrenees plunged into the Mediterranean, we spent tons of time in the villages and cities of that part of Spain, including most especially the legendary city of Barcelona, and picked up Spanish, etc., etc. So that's that. 5, 6 languages? Take that, Rosedale. But that's the privilege of having grown up in 3 languages, is that it gives you in later life the ability to absorb other languages like a sponge. There is, you see, a muscle in the brain that was put there for the purpose of absorbing sound, as in sound waves, as in sonic vibrations. Musicians have the privilege of exercising that muscle. Trust me, I used to have to memorize pages and pages of scores by Bach, Schumann, Scriabin, even the 12-tone composer Arnold Schoenberg. Ever seen a score by Arnold Schoenberg? Might as well learn to read Chinese. But we had to memorize this stuff, okay? For concerts, and play it in concerts. But the human language too is sound and sound waves and sonic vibration. And the earlier in life that you put that muscle to work, the stronger it becomes. Like a gymnast's body, it grows in suppleness and dexterity. 4-year-olds, for instance, learn other languages just like that, with flawless accents. If you don't, on the other hand, exercise that muscle, as with any other muscle, it atrophies. So that if you're unilingual by age 40, then you're pretty well cursed to being unilingual for the rest of your life, unless, of course, you make an extraordinary effort to reverse that handicap, which you should, because there are studies to prove this. The exercising of that muscle in the brain staves off Alzheimer's. It is about the training of memory. It is like taking that muscle for a jog every day. It is about the training of memories. Think of that as you're caring for your 90-year-old widowed mother in that nursing home. Think of yourself at that age. Now, not only is speaking one language like living in a house that has but one window, as said earlier, it is like sitting at a dinner table where you do all the talking and you talk about nothing but yourself. It means you're not listening to what the other person has to say. It means you are not interested. And that's not good for relationships. In fact, I would even venture to say that forcing your own one language down another person's throat is not entirely unlike breaking into his house and stealing his spirit. I'm sorry, but having been at the receiving end of such aggression, that's what it feels like. But I mean, if a gay Cree Indian born in a snowbank on the Manitoba-Nunavut border can master English until his tongue turned purple and can speak French to the point of total and abject humiliation and can learn to play Chopin like Itzhak Perlman plays Mrs. Perlman, then anyone can learn 3 languages, minimum. The question being, where do you learn them, these other languages? The school is called World Travel. Go to spend a year in Ecuador and pick up Spanish. It's a stunning country. Hiking in the Andes is one of life's great pleasures. Yes, make a fool of yourself and turn pink purple, but learn to say muchísimas gracias y hasta mañana, mi cariño. Or go to Spain or Argentina, where in the latter country, a decent hotel room costs the equivalent of $15 Canadian a night, a bottle of good red Argentinian wine in a restaurant as low as $3, a one-way bus ticket from Edmonton to Calgary, or an equivalent distance thereof, costs $10 as opposed to $60. Go and live in the south of France for 13 years like we did and become fluent in French and drink red wine for $2.30 Canadian. I kid you not. Even Gaspé, Quebec, without the wine, of course, would do the trick. Some people do Japan to master Japanese, Russia to master Russian, Kuwait or Dubai to master Arab, Rome or Florence to master Italian, and then find work in diplomatic fields such as embassies and consulates, which are scattered all over the world, not to mention banks and international enterprises who need translators. Your 10-year-old daughter, if encouraged, if given the right tools, can realistically become, by age 50, Canada's ambassador to Hungary. Budapest is a fabulous city. Canada's ambassador to Chile. Santiago is a fabulous city. Canada's ambassador to Japan. Tokyo is a spectacular city. Your child's life, that is to say, becomes that much richer, that much more fun, that much more colorful. And most important, she will aid in the process of bringing the world together, of helping in the nurturing of world peace and stability, certainly that between Quebec and the rest of Canada. Statement, exhortation, ardent plea. It is our responsibility as citizens of this stunning country, this privileged land, to hold it together, to make sure it doesn't fall apart. Alors, multilingualism, the greatest gift you can give your child, because in doing so, you give them the world. You give them a spectacular life. You give them one of the great keys to happiness. Trust me, I've been there. I'm living proof. Come with me to Rio de Janeiro in 2 short weeks, and I'll show you the meaning of the words, good time. It's going to be my 6th time. Most people will be lucky to see it once. It's going to be my 6th time in Rio. It's my favorite city on earth. Back at Edmonton. Alors, le temps est arrivé pour moi de terminer ma présentation, je pense. J'espère que vous avez appris certaines choses. J'espère que j'ai réussi en ouvrant vos yeux, vos esprits, vos cœurs à certaines nouvelles perspectives sur la vie ici au Canada, sur notre culture comme Amérindiens, les résidents originaux de ce terrain. Encore, merci de m'avoir invité, de m'avoir écouté tellement respectueusement. Merci d'être venu, merci d'être là, merci d'être vous. C'était un honneur, un immense plaisir. Mille merci et bonne fin de soirée. Kitam kinanas ko mitna ka kita kido ta kai kai tasigo ta anos ka tips ka des igipin tumi ta pipu squata go si quest ni gibidi tin poisi itu palia poisi sigrasmia pagante ta just kidding ma ta pui kinanas ko mitna ko sogi kinanas ko mitna ro kisagi nawa uta uche. I love you from my heart. Igose, Ntotimak. Zachki come to what mit now. I'll see you again. Thank you. Thank you. This song is an example of a Cree writer writing in French. It's called Quand je danse. I'll translate for you. When I dance with you in your arms, with you, my dear. I look at you, into your eyes. And you know what I see in those eyes? Ce que je vois. What I see in those eyes, my dear, is the reflection of those stars up in the sky and the love light in your eyes, my dear. La lumière de ton amour, the light of your love. So, my dear, come and see me. Let's dance, arm in arm, tonight. And this time, the musical influence is Brazilian bossa nova. Quand je danse sous les étoiles. Good night.